Hey everyone, and welcome. We all know AI is changing our world, like every single day. But how do we make sure it's changing it for the better? Today we're going to break down the absolute essentials for building AI that's not just powerful, but also fair, safe, and works for all of us. All right, let's dive in. And just so you know where all this is coming from, everything we're talking about today is pulled straight from the first chapter of the Ethical AI and AI Security Glossary by Virtualization Options LLC. We're really focusing on the bedrock here, the foundational ideas that everything else gets built on.
I mean, really think about that for a second. AI is already having a say in who gets a loan, who gets a job interview, even what medical treatments are suggested. So this isn't some far-off sci-fi question, right? It's happening now. The real challenge is, how do we get this right?
To figure that out, we've got a pretty clear plan. First, we'll get into the big ideas behind ethical AI. Then, we'll see how we turn those ideas into action. After that, we'll tackle the super tricky concept of fairness. And finally, we'll talk about how we make sure people, real, live humans, are always in the driver's seat.
So, first things first, what do we even mean when we say ethical AI? This is all about the philosophical core, the deep questions we absolutely have to ask before a single line of code gets written. Yeah, so ethical AI isn't about the nuts and bolts of programming, it's all about the why. Why are we building this? Is it going to help people? Does it respect us? How is this going to change our world? It's basically the moral compass for all of AI. It's about our values.
And here's a really useful distinction. You'll hear AI ethics a lot. That's kind of the whole field, the whole playbook of rules and best practices. But ethical AI is more specific. It's the heart of that playbook. It's the part that's constantly asking, what is the right thing to do here? And this example just hits the nail on the head. A piece of tech could be 99.9% accurate, an engineering marvel. But ethical AI forces us to hit pause and ask, just because we can do this, should we? Is this the kind of world we want to live in? That's the question right there. Okay, so having a moral compass is great, but how do you actually use it to navigate? That brings us to our next section, moving from those big philosophical questions to the practical, real-world job of making AI responsible. So, if ethical AI is like the Constitution, a document of our highest ideals, then responsible AI is the entire legal system. It's the laws, the processes, the day-to-day work that make sure those good intentions actually happen and aren't just words on a page. And a huge piece of this is something called AI governance. Think of it this way. First, you write the rulebook for how AI can be used. Then you bring in referees, like a review board, to watch the game. And finally, you have a way to check the instant replays to make sure no one's breaking the rules. It's a whole structure to keep things in check. And this is why it matters so much. Accountability is everything. Without it, you get this exact situation where something goes wrong and a company can just shrug and say, hey, the algorithm did it. No. Accountability means a human being, a person, is always answerable. The buck has to stop somewhere. Now, for accountability to work, you absolutely need transparency. But this doesn't mean someone just hands you 1,000 pages of code. Real, meaningful transparency is about being able to answer these 4 questions in plain English. What does it do? How does it do it? What's it feeding on? And, this is a big one, what are its limits and risks? All right, this leads us into what might be the trickiest, most complex challenge in this entire field: fairness. How on earth do we build AI systems that are truly fair and don't just amplify the biases that already exist in our society? And the very first thing we have to get our heads around is that fairness isn't just one simple thing. It's got all these different facets. And sometimes what looks fair from one perspective can actually be unfair from another. They can even contradict each other. It's a real puzzle. This breaks it down really well. You're basically trying to juggle these 4 different ideas of what it means to be fair. So you have statistical fairness, are different groups getting roughly the same results. Then you have procedural fairness, is the process itself fair regardless of the outcome. Then there's distributive fairness, is the AI spreading its benefits and burdens around evenly? And finally, individual fairness. If 2 people are basically the same, are they treated the same? Getting all 4 of these to line up, that's the goal.
Part of fairness is also about this idea of proportionality. You wouldn't use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. The tool has to match the task. Using super invasive facial recognition just to see who's in class, that feels way over the top. But using that same tech to protect a nuclear power plant? Okay, the stakes are a lot higher, so it makes more sense.
And that brings us to our final and, you could argue, most important building block: making sure that no matter how smart this tech gets, people are always in control. It's all about designing systems that serve us, not the other way around.
A really key idea here is what's called human in the loop. You can think of it like a safety brake or a mandatory checkpoint. For the big, important decisions in medicine, in law, in finance, it guarantees that a real person has to review it and has the power to say yes, no, or hold on a minute.
But, and this is a huge but, just having a person in the room isn't enough. We all have this tendency, this automation bias, where we just kind of assume the computer is right. So the oversight has to be meaningful. The human in the loop needs to be trained, empowered, and expected to actually question the machine, not just rubber stamp its decisions.
And keeping humans in control means designing for all of us. Inclusive design is about thinking from day one about people from different backgrounds, with different abilities, who speak with different accents. Think about your voice assistant at home. If it only understands a standard accent, it's not just annoying, it's actually excluding people. Inclusive design fixes that from the start.
And finally, putting people first means protecting their privacy. Privacy by design means you don't just tack on privacy features at the end. It's baked in from the blueprint stage. You start by collecting only the data you absolutely need. You process it in a way that protects people, and you store it with Fort Knox-level security. So let's just quickly pull all that together. Ethical AI is our conscience, asking why. Responsible AI is our game plan, figuring out how. You can't have trust without accountability and transparency. Fairness is a complicated balancing act. And at the end of the day, all of this is about designing for humans, keeping us in charge and projecting our information.
So I'll leave you with this to chew on. As these AI systems get more and more powerful, which one of these building blocks do you think is going to be the most critical and maybe the hardest to hold on to? Is it fairness, accountability, human control? It's something we're all going to have to think about. Thanks for tuning in.